Let's go. Oh, you know what? I didn't test my microphone. Is it working? Is it much too loud? Can you guys hear me okay? Is it too loud, too quiet? I don't even know if I can adjust mic volume on this StreamYard thing. But anyway, hi. Welcome to A Moment in Time with Taylor. I'm Taylor, and I go live every single day, 7 days a week on Twitch, on Periscope/Twitter, and sometimes I go live here on YouTube as well. I'm live on YouTube and Periscope/Twitter right now, and I'll be live on Twitch after this. So we are doing a book review today. If you don't know, I love to read. I read new books all the time, and I'm also a college student, so I read some textbooks and do broadcasts about subjects within the texts and subjects in my study as well. Hey, Junk, phenomenal first comment to the broadcast. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. You are as well. Hi, Rhodey. We are doing this live, so I'll try to stay on topic, but we'll also engage with the chat. I don't know what you mean by that, Mark. Hey, Suat. So this book was really interesting. So I do book reviews and summaries here on my YouTube channel and on my Periscope and Twitter channels as well. Plus, I send out an email that summarizes all the books that I read in written format, so you don't have to sit and listen and watch through a live stream. Instead, if you want to just read a couple paragraphs about the book, basically, I summarize, the 200 some odd pages that are in most books into a couple paragraphs and give you some key takeaways, and then your option if you want to go dig deeper and read the book yourself, or if that's enough. So in a way, I read it so you don't have to. And I really enjoy this. This is one of my favorite things that I do, which is reading books and then sharing the information I learn with others. Most of the books that I read are nonfiction. They are based on personal development and growth, business, finance, and psychology, parenting, things within those realms. Nothing really fictional or fantasy. So this book is called The End of Average, Unlocking Our Potential by Embracing What Makes Us Different by Todd Rose. And I really quite enjoyed this book. And also my email for the book reviews only goes out once every 4 months. So you only get 3 emails from me, and it's totally free. You can sign up at my website. I'm not pointing at the right area. Nextjuice.com, NEXJUICE.com. Hi, Danny. The link is also in my profile. You can find that, and you'll be able to check out the email that went out yesterday and sign up for future emails as well, because one did go out yesterday with 4 books on it, 1 book a month, and it's there's some pretty good stuff on there. I think it's worth checking out. Hey, Kyle, first comment over on YouTube. How are you doing? So this book appealed to me. One, it was recommended by someone. I don't know. I have so many books on my suggested reading list. I have this whole second shelf from the bottom is all books that I intend to read. I wanted to read them this year. It's not looking like that's probably going to happen, but I'll read a bunch of them. And this book really called out to me because of the subject that it's about. Unlocking our potential by embracing what makes us different. And this is actually a book I was thinking about writing, very similar. I wouldn't have titled it this, but it's really important, I think, to realize that being weird, being different, being unusual and atypical is actually a good thing. It helps you to stand out, which makes it easier to compete and to succeed, whether you view it as a competition or not. It's definitely important to realize that you don't have to fit in, you don't have to go with the flow, you don't have to go with the herd in order to be successful. And in fact, if you really want to be exceptionally successful, then you need to be exceptional, which requires you to be different from everyone else. What's special about you? And then how can you capitalize on that? Hi, Felicia. Hello, beautiful love. How are you? How is Sweden today? So this book is about that subject, and I really enjoy the way that he explores it. I actually even used it to write a multi-page paper in one of my psychology classes where we were free to choose our own sources, and I got to write about how challenging it is to study individuals because we view so many things in terms of averages. So in this book, he starts out, I think it's broken into 3 parts, and the primary part kind of explains the invention of the concept of average through mathematics, and then the beginning of applying that to humans and trying to find useful information about humans to make big generalities about groups of humans and try to find an average so that we can then use that information practically. And that's what I'm always looking for in books, is what's the practical information, what's the practical use of this information in the book. And it's, sorry, I keep forgetting what platform I'm live on. So in terms of this book and the information in this book, it's very interesting, and I find it to be very true, and I agree with it. However, I'm not sure the extreme practical usefulness of the information within. So he talks about average and how when they first started applying the concept of average to humans, they actually idealized the average. They viewed the average as the goal. You wanted to be as close to average as possible. And that was like the average man was like what we should all strive to be, perfect in every way, which is very counter to what we now believe, which was kind of evolved over time from that concept of having the perfect average to being exceptional, and then using the average as basically a baseline measurement of people against other people. So you could be above average, exceptional, and superior, and therefore above and better than other people. You could be average, which means you're like everyone else. You're not really very exceptional, but you're fine. And then you can have below average, which means you're inferior, you're below these other people, and you're not as good. So that's an obvious problem because when we start to rank people in some type of hierarchy, maybe that has some usefulness, but how accurate are the measurements that we're using? And that's what the book kind of explores in the second part. So they talk about this whole concept of averagarianism and how this came to be, and some of the founding fathers of these concepts, and in applying it to humans and human behaviors, human physical characteristics and traits. And then he gets into why that's flawed and what is the problem with that, and how we have to move back to a place of studying individuality and taking into account what makes people unique and individual, and realizing that no one is average. This is an argument I've been making since I was probably 13, maybe 12 years old. Good, Kyle, I'm glad to hear that. Hey, Raven, thanks for watching over on YouTube. Yeah, guys, if it is glitching out for you on Periscope, please just tune in on YouTube. We're live on both platforms right now. And sometimes Periscope glitches, and I'm not even sure they have a team anymore. I'm not really sure what's going on with them. So we are just making use of other platforms as much as we can. So thanks for checking out on YouTube. Now where was I here? Sorry. So there's two main concepts that explain why averaging people is not useful. And like I said, there's no average person. Let me go back to that's where I was. So when I was about 12 or 13, I just remember thinking that weird was cool because a friend of mine's older brother felt that way. And interestingly enough, he spent most of his days playing video games. And he would wear mismatched socks. He would tell me only cool people wear mismatched socks. He watched a lot of anime and listened to even like Japanese music. And he wasn't Asian. He's a white guy. And a Jewish guy, I believe. And he was very unique. He was very like eccentric and different, right? But I really liked him. I thought he was funny. I found him relatable, and I vibed with him. So I started to adapt those same concepts. I started wearing mismatched socks. I started listening to some of the same music, and I was definitely like kind of mimicking someone I viewed as cool in my world that was stereotypically not cool, very not cool, right? This is like a video gamer guy. He watches anime. Like, this is not what we think of. If we think of a cool person, we don't think of this guy or people that fall into this category. Bornor, if you can hear me, watch on YouTube. Go watch on YouTube. I don't know why Periscope's so glitchy all the time. There's not really anything I can do about it. I've reported it to Periscope. I've reported it to StreamYard. It happens on OBS too. Periscope's just kind of shitty. Sorry. I love this. I love the people on this app, but the app is definitely not well maintained. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. Hi, go watch on YouTube so you can hear me, okay? Sorry, Periscope people. I am not in charge of the app. And if I was, that would be bad because I have no technical expertise with that at all. Amp, it seems to be freezing for people again. So, and Michael and Rhodey and everyone, if you want to watch on YouTube, it might be a better viewing experience. So I'm going to get back to the content now. So the first we have to realize that there is no such thing as normal. That was kind of my argument as I was entering adolescence and going through adolescence. I thought, oh my God, why do people dislike all these things about me and other people that are different from what they have? Because isn't that more interesting? Isn't that more fun, exciting, entertaining? Isn't that where most of these good things in life come from, as opposed to just boring, monotonous mediocrity? That's kind of how I viewed it. And I thought, this is really interesting, that so many people seem to demonize weirdness. And I've noticed this even in my stepchildren today, not this day, but in the past few months, weird was something they were starting to become aware of the concept of. They're in elementary school, and they were like, oh, well, that's weird, or you're weird. They're brothers, and they'll kind of fight with each other. You're so weird. I'm not weird. And I'm like, hey, being weird is good. Next time someone tells you that you're weird, say thank you. That's what I say, because my weirdness is what has enabled me to excel and succeed in the business that I choose, which is a weird, unique, eccentric business of live streaming. And you'll see criticism online of people that are content creators online, criticizing that business model. And their main criticism is just that it doesn't fit with their preconceived norms and notions of what a business should look like, and what, like a service business isn't a legitimate business, but only product-based business are, or whatever their arguments are. It's just based in them. Hi, Warlow, what's up? If you're having trouble seeing the stream, if it's cutting out, just watch on YouTube. I'm live on YouTube right now too. Raven, is it glitching on YouTube? Raven, you're over there. Let me know if it's smooth over there. It should be smooth. I don't usually get negative feedback on YouTube, but just Periscope. So that's important to realize, is like, why, just becoming aware of it. Why do we want to be normal? Why do we think weird is bad? What put that in our heads? Who taught us that? And can we remove that because it's bullshit? So then we think about the concept of average. What's an average person? An average person would be an average height, average weight, average intelligence, average socioeconomic status, average, pant size, like everything about this person would have to be completely average through and through. And that's simply not the case. So they discovered, a good example of this in designing cockpits for airline pilots. And at first, they designed it to the average person, to the average measurement, the average hip width, the average back height, the average leg length, everything average. And what they discovered is that it fit it fit 2% of their pilots were comfortable enough in the average positions. But even of those 2%, none of them had 100% completely average measurements. And even if they did, even if 2% of the population was average, we have this concept that most people are average, right? I've been spewing this concept for up until I read this book, like very recently. What makes it the average is that most people are that way. And I've come to find out that that's not really the case, because humans are so multidimensional, and there's so many different, traits, and there's so many different Barlow, that's later tonight. There's so many different ways to measure a person, and physically and otherwise, and in probably hundreds of thousands of ways that you could, how good is someone at a certain game? How good are they at an instrument? How good are they at speaking all of the different languages in the world? I mean, holy, right? So I might speak English pretty well, but I really don't speak Farsi very good at all. I don't even know one single word of it. So does that mean I don't know how to speak? Does that mean I'm a terrible speaker? Maybe in Persia, Persian countries, because I wouldn't be able to communicate with anybody. But in America and England, I would be able to communicate with people just fine. So it's important to realize that these one-dimensional ways that we measure people are not useful, because when someone might be actually, I'm going to use, I should ask permission to use people as examples. So I won't say who this is. I think they might be watching, and they might be aware that I'm talking about them, but I'm going to use someone I know as an example. So I know someone who really struggles with like spelling. So on like written text, the spelling's usually off. Sometimes it's difficult to understand what this person's even actually saying, because the spelling and grammar are so challenging for them. And then on the flip side, this person is very good at games that involve, because I've been playing games a lot on Twitch, that involve social verbal skills, that they're strongly linked to having good ability to convey your message. So that goes into one of the two concepts that we talk about in the second part of this book, or that he talks about in the second part of this book, which is context. So just because somebody excels or struggles in one area doesn't mean that they're going to excel or struggle in a different area. And it also means that they might not excel or struggle in that same area in a different context. So surrounded by a different environment. And so they found like some people will cheat on a math test, but not on an English test. So it's not like they just cheat on tests. And some people will steal from stores, but not from people's homes. So we think, oh, well, this person is a thief. I'm not letting them in my house. But they've never stolen anything from anyone's house and have no intention to do so because they only steal from companies because of whatever, right? Everyone has their different beliefs and backgrounds and values. And there's just so many different ways to measure people that we have to realize that when we're looking at individuals. And he talks about, maybe I should get into this at the end. Okay, so let me talk about the second concept. So one is the context principle, which means that people behave differently in different contexts. So even if someone's really quiet in one context and shy and introverted, in another context, they could be very chatty and even extroverted and, energetic. And they could be really like low energy in other contexts and other situations. Some people feel comfortable around adults. Some people feel comfortable around children. Some people feel comfortable around people of one religion and not another. We all have these things where we act differently. We change and adapt to the circumstances we find ourselves in. So therefore, you can't really categorize us as introverted or extroverted or outgoing or not, or quiet or talkative, or, these things that we kind of like say about people. We want to put people in boxes because it makes it easy for us to label them and categorize them in our heads and lump them together in different groups and kind of subgroup them and use them to we use the individuals that we actually have interaction with to kind of summarize all humans and make sweeping generalities about people. And the book I previously read, which is called Brain Sex, and I did a review on last time, if you want to check out the replay, it's on my books playlist on my YouTube channel. You wonder who? Some are scared of the opposite gender. Well, that was the last book that I read, which actually your profile picture kind of looks like the cover of that book. It's called Brain Sex, and it's about the different ways that male and female brains work. But again, we're speaking in generalities, and how applicable is that information in general if only 2% of people fall into the complete generality, right? So maybe generally women are better than men with verbal skills. So then that's like, okay, but some women aren't. Some men are superior to some women. So it makes it, so it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what the generality is in practice. In practice, we need to know who we're actually dealing with, not whether they're male or female, but how they react in certain situations. So then he gets into, well, let me go to Jaggedness Principle and then we'll go into the next part. So Kenny, I'm glad you like this. If it is skipping for you on Periscope, I'm live on YouTube right now too, and hopefully it'll be a better viewing experience over there. Okay, so the second principle, we talked about context, and then the second is jaggedness. The Jaggedness Principle. Jagged, like a jagged line, like a zigzag. And this speaks to the multidimensionality of humans. So I touched on it, but I want to use the word Jaggedness Principles so that it helps you remember, is that humans are jagged. They're not just across the board above average or across the board below average or across the board average. They're average on some stuff, they're above average on other things, they're below average on other things, and then you put context into play and that all changes as well. So you just realize that humans are extremely unique, diverse, and different from each other. And you can't cater something to everyone because it won't work. If you cater something to the average, you're only catering to 2% of people at most. So therefore, you're excluding 98% of people that don't fall into the average on one or more of the measurement categories that you're using. So what do we do with this information, right? I think most of us knew this intuitively, that we're all very different, and you can't use like our age or our gender or our weight or our color or whatever I didn't say yet, all the different ways that we categorize people and say like, okay, these people are this way. Obviously, right? I mean, we know this, but we do it all the time. We have these preconceived notions, and we live within systems that perpetuate the hierarchy versus the average, the above average, average, and below average way that we kind of value ourselves and how the systems value us. So that's he gets into more of this in the third part, talking about like the education system and the work system. So let's start with work. He talks about how this guy, something last name Taylor, my first name is Taylor, so I remembered it. It's like Taylorist philosophies. which are not mine. They're this guy's, and I don't agree with them. But at the same time, let's talk about this. Those of you who are entrepreneurs out there or have studied, any kind of optimization for business, even if you work within some type of corporation or something, if you're into this kind of information, I want to hear what you think, because one of the books I really love that I read about business is, oh my God, what's the name of it? Hang on, let me go find the name of it. Okay. Built to Sell by Peter Warlow. And this book is about the importance of systems in your business and the importance of having a well-developed organization chart that you create jobs for the business and for the structure of the business. You don't create jobs for people. So you don't meet someone, oh, this person's really awesome, I'd love to work with them, and then create a position for them. Instead, you create the positions and then you look for people that meet the requirements for those positions. What's the right way? According to this book compared to that book, we have some conflict. So Taylorist principles say that the system is more important than the individual. So the business, you set it up into a system that the individual doesn't really matter. They don't need to be exceptional in any way. They could be fully average. You cater your business to the average. So if somebody quits or gets sick or has a baby or dies or whatever, they leave your company, you can easily replace them with someone else, and that doesn't require like extensive levels of training or whatever. You have these requirements, and then you fill these positions by looking for people that have these certain skill sets. And how do you really do that? How do you know what kind of skill set someone has? So first I want to talk about that, the organization chart, and creating positions and then looking for individuals to fill those positions, rather than finding great talented individuals and figuring out where they can fit in your organization. And I don't know that it has to be one or the other, and I think we'll find kind of a middle ground with this book a little bit also. So then we go to how we hire people on, what we look for on the resume. What are we looking for? Are we looking for a college degree? Are we looking for a certain grade point average, or do we care what college they went to? Are we looking for experience? How long did they work at different places? What is it that you're really looking at, and why? And don't you realize that a resume is so limited in what it really tells you about that person's ability to do the job that you're trying to hire them to do? And wouldn't it be a lot more useful if you just had them try to do the job and see how they did? I remember when I applied to work for a veterinarian, a holistic veterinarian, when I was younger. And there was the first part of the interview, right? First I had to apply, just like fill out the application. Then I had my resume. Then I went in for an interview. Then I went in for a second interview, which was a second or third interview, which was a working interview where I basically worked there for a couple hours for free. And they saw like how I fit with them. And in the jobs that I was doing, they taught me a few things. It was like I was already learning how to do the job, even though I didn't have the job yet. So they're sacrificing a little time on training, but they're also seeing, how do I fit in with them? How do I follow direction? Am I able to understand what's happening here and what they're instructing me to do? Am I working with the customers well? So it doesn't matter what my GPA was or where I went to school or what experience that I have. They're putting me in the position that I'm going to be in and figuring out if I can do it. That makes a lot more sense to me than the vast majority of ways that companies go about hiring. So much of it is based on the resume. I've done hiring. I've done a lot of hiring. And when I've done it, there's plenty of people I do not even call based on their resumes. And that's so not fair, because not everybody is great at expressing themselves on a resume. Not everyone's great at putting a resume together. And where in the job are they ever going to have to put a resume together? Okay, if you work for like a temp agency, then okay, yeah, you're going to need people that can make a nice looking resume, because that's going to be their job. But for everyone else, making a resume and having a nice looking resume is not a part of their job description. So they're never going to need to do that. So what the heck difference does it make if they're capable of that or not? So that's a big question mark, because I'm seeing that, the more people I meet, I find like not everyone's conventionally what I would think of as like, oh, this person is like impressive and successful, but they are impressive in a lot of ways that maybe aren't like noticed or valued or even thought about by employers or others in the world. So that's important to think about. So that's one way we can kind of change this, is in the way that we hire people, the way that we look at it. Instead of saying, you know what, we don't need a resume, we don't need you to fill out an application or anything like that. If you're interested, come in. We'll do like a, you can do like a group thing, and then we're all going to teach you all how to do like some basic tasks that was part of this job, and we're going to see how you guys do. And maybe in that context they struggle because it's a group and they feel competitive and they feel pressure, and that's difficult. So you want to do one-on-one as well. I don't know. You're gonna have to put them in the context that they would actually be working within. So if they're not working in groups, then maybe you'd want to do it individual interviews. Of course, this is going to be more time consuming than filtering out through a bunch of resumes, but there's so much untapped talent out there when we write people off based on how well they put a resume together. They can have a lot of other skills because they're jagged, right? So that's one in terms of education, or I'm sorry, in terms of employment and the workplace. And secondly, we have education, the education systems, which very much are standardized. They're standardized, they're averagarian. If you want a bachelor's degree, you need a certain number of credit hours. I want to say 120 credit hours, let's say. So you need 120 credit hours to get the bachelor's degree. And to get it in a certain major, then you need to take some classes. There's some required classes that, if someone sees you have this degree, they know you at least took these required classes. But then the rest could be completely different. So I can have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and you can have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And I actually am pursuing my bachelor's degree in psychology and in my associate's degree. And even now, for some reason, I'm just taking a lot of like government-based politics, history type classes. Some of them are required, some of them are electives, and I'm choosing them because the professor that teaches it is very easy and I like working with him, and it makes my life easy to get the degree, which I think is completely dumb that I even have to do this and pay for it. So someone else, if you have your bachelor's degree in psychology, you could have taken a bunch of German classes or Spanish classes or sign language classes or computer engineering classes or English literature classes. Like literally, it could be anything. We could have completely different backgrounds and interests. And so simply saying I have a bachelor's degree in psychology doesn't actually tell you much. What should be more interesting to you is the credentials that I have for the job I'm applying for. So he proposes a radical change to the education system, which I love, which is, there's a few characteristics of it, but one is that it's based on credentials. So you say, I've taken this class, right? I took like computer programming 101, and I took computer science and computer engineering. I don't know what computer classes are called, but all these different classes. And so therefore I'm, applying to be a software engineer because I have these credentials. They don't care if you took German, maybe if they have German speaking clients or employees or something like that. But for the most part, right, they just want to know your computer software experience. They don't care what your GPA was in your English class. They shouldn't care what your GPA was at all. Because none of that should really matter. It just matters that you have these credentials. So that's one, credentials. Another is competence. So basically a pass-fail system. You either pass the class because you displayed competency within the material that you needed to learn, or you fail because you didn't get it and you need to learn more and you don't have the credential. You don't get the credential. But not like, oh, someone has a 90 and someone else has a 70. No, it's just they're competent, right? Maybe you still have some type of honor system or something for someone who shows excellent performance, if you really want to say this person demonstrates like a mastery of this. Maybe there'd be like a master's credential or something, and then everything else, the regular credential. You could still have some hierarchy there, some like way to signify this person is exceptional in this certain realm, right? But if someone's an honor student in school, what does that really mean? They submitted their assignments on time, they followed the rules, they did what the professor asked them to do. Are any of these things really that important to them working in your business? Maybe, but probably not, honestly. That's why people have this reality check when they get out of school and they go into the real world, because they barely prepared you for anything real, because it's so different, so different. Oh, really, Aishu? Me too. I did my associate's degree and I'm in my first semester of my bachelor's degree right now. So that's pretty cool. Do I play on the piano? Sometimes, yeah. You have 6 so far, Chris? 6 what? Okay, so the pass-fail system, and then self-directed and self-paced education. So you don't have to do it Like for me, my classes started in September, they end in December. I have to have everything done by December. So self-paced classes means you do it at your own pace. Once you finish the classwork, you get the credential, as long as you display competency. You can take as long or as short as you want. You can do the class in a week, you can do the class in a year. Make sense? So I like that a lot, because that's just how it is. Not everybody, as I go through college right now, I realize there are probably people who would benefit from learning some of the things that I'm learning, or would benefit from being able to have a college degree. But I look at what I'm doing and I think, I'm not sure that some people I know would be able to do this. There's so much reading, there's so much writing, there's so many deadlines and due dates and points off and formatting and shit that doesn't matter in the real world. It doesn't, because I'm 30 years old and I just started going to school last year, to college last year. So I lived in the real world for quite a while before starting to go to school. And I realized how absolutely pointless and useless so much of it is. And then he gets into also the payments, right? So if we didn't have to pay for all these bullshit extra classes that do nothing for our real world application, then we would save tons and tons of money if we only paid for the classes we wanted the credentials in. And so we could basically piecemeal and self-direct our studies, and then you could switch it up. Right now, if you want to switch majors, it's like, oh shoot, you got to take all these prerequisites for the other classes. It's going to mess you up. You're going to be out even more money. It penalizes you for trying something, experimenting. Oh, okay, I tried that. I wasn't really into it. Try something else. If you're just taking the core, the credentialed classes in those subjects, you're not out as bad. You can switch it up, because it doesn't matter if you switch to a different major, because it's just based on credentials anyway, rather than degrees. So I like that a lot. And then, so not only is it self-directed, but it's also self-paced. When you finish, you finish. There's no deadline. There's no time that it has to be done by. You just do it within your own pace. And maybe there's some end date, right? Because you have like a professor involved or something. Maybe it's like a year, but a semester right now is about 3 months or 4 months. I think it's about 4 months. So that's not that long. There are days where I am like hammering to get work done. So if you had a year or something, and then there's times where I'm way ahead and I'm like done. And if I was only focusing on the classes and the subjects that I'm interested in, I would already have my master's degree, because of all the pointless time I spent learning about human biology and American federal government and the history of the US. Hey Jay, good to see you. Oh, you changed it. You have a PhD in what? Hi Everson. If this is glitching for you guys on Periscope, please jump over to YouTube, where I am streaming at the same time. Okay. So I think that pretty much, those are the major takeaways of the book. So he talks about the history of average and averagarianism, and how the average used to be the ideal, and then it became the hierarchy of above average, average, and below average. And then it became, you're striving to be above average, but then it also, like factories and some of the older ways of doing things, made everything very standardized. And we see now that companies are changing. Look at software companies. They're trying different things. They're realizing that this standardized factory catering to the average person isn't really working in the modern day. And they're starting to engage these more individualized concepts. And he gives examples of companies and schools in here that have used this individualized focus and had some good results, even scientists and researchers as well. Then in part 2, he gets into the Jaggedness Principle and the Context Principle. And then the part 3 is where he really talks about how we can change businesses, the system of capitalism, to benefit people who are different and don't fit into the standard, way of doing things. And then how to change higher education and even public education as well, to be self-paced, not based on averages, and to be based on competence instead. So I liked this book a lot. I tend to agree with it. I think it's a little bit difficult to figure out how to apply that when it comes to just about anything, because individuals are so unique and so diverse. How can we truly prepare for them as a business? How can I really make sure that I'm giving my employees everything they need when they're all so different from each other? So I'm still kind of exploring that, and I didn't see a lot of people commenting on that, so I guess I'll keep exploring that on my own. And I'm going to get ready to go live on Twitch now. So I hope you enjoyed this book review of The End of Average Unlocking Our Potential by Embracing What Makes Us Different by Todd Rose, a book I wish I had written. And I do book reviews and summaries on here all the time, so make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow my Periscope and Twitter channels. Thank you, Kenny. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's so good to have you here and engaged. And make sure you sign up for my free email book reviews and summaries as well. I only send them out 3 times a year, once every 4 months, and it's just a summary and review of all the books I read over those 4 months. So you can go sign up for that at the website for free, nextjuice.com, and I sent one out yesterday, so if you want to go check that out, you'll be able to look at the old email list as well. You can even look at the emails before you sign up to make sure that it's something that you want, but don't forget to sign up after. Hey, Brent, I'm just wrapping up. You just came in at the end, but I'm going to go live on Twitch in a bit. You're doing that? All right, Kenny. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I've been live for 35 minutes. I just finished the book review. Periscope seems to be glitching for people, so the chat's a little slow, which makes it easier to get through the content. So I'll see you guys on Twitch, and hopefully Periscope will get their act together. But probably not, because Chloe just got her account shut down yesterday, so it just seems like it's a sinking ship. Okay, Warlow, that sounds good. Yes, and it's date night tonight. We're going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and have $3 tall, what is it called? Something Kolsch by Goose Island. Yum. Yeah, you weren't here distracting me. That's exactly why. Yep. That's it. That's why. It's your fault. Thank you very much for not distracting me. I got a bunch of schoolwork done today. I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm on a good path, but it's 3 o'clock and it's date night tonight, so I got to get live on Twitch for a little while, grind out some Fortnite levels and XP and punch cards. I'll probably just do like Marvel Trios the whole time, maybe some Solid Gold, and I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Brent. How are you doing? Stop distracting me. I hope you guys enjoyed this book review and will sign up to get my emails. And yeah, come follow me on Twitch too if you want to play some games. We're going to do Fortnite tonight. Love you guys. I hope to see you on the next juice. This has been A Moment in Time with Taylor. Please remember that you are worthy of being loved and feeling comfortable in your own skin. Ed's good. Bye, guys.